Ooby-doo, it's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. And today we're going to look at the Canon EF-S 10 to 18 millimeter with image stabilization. This is a 4.5 to 5.6 STM, which means stepper motor. But man, that's a slow lens. And it shows when you use it with the Vello LAE-SE-CEF auto lens adapter for the Canon to EF to Sony E mount. So I went to the city today, and the Canadian forest fire smoke came back. That's the 12th of June 2023. And I went there. I was there at 7 o'clock, and the sun should be casting long shadows and with bright highlights and dark low lights all over, but that wasn't the case. The sun was so obscured that everything was gray. And I wouldn't say it was dark, but it definitely wasn't like as if it was a clear weather with blue sky. So what happens is this combination of adapter and a camera seems to favor bright sunlight. Some of the pictures I took early on had questionable focus with this lens, at least they were soft, and it also seemed to like to pick a strong pattern back of the subject that you want to focus on, which you'll see in our sample pictures. Plus, I ran a lot of panoramas because I wanted to see what this thing would do. But it was my opinion that later on, like closer to 8 o'clock, the thing was auto-focusing better because it was just brighter out. So I'll have to do more studies and see how valid that is. But it's a hefty lens. It looks like it's a better build quality than the EF-S 18 to 55, that's for sure. When it's stopped down to f14, 16, 20, 29, the results look really good. But if you're at a 4.5 and 5.6, it's definitely soft. But like I said, that could be a focusing problem, so I'll have to look at it again. So otherwise, I was satisfied with it. That did work, except with the panorama mode, it went to segment autofocus, or instead of getting one square in the middle and it turns green, you get a bunch of little squares or brackets or something, and they all turn green, and this means you have a range of focus. I don't know how accurate that was at all. So what we're going to have to do is just run this under sunny conditions. I'll have to go back to some other town and see how it works out. So this is a cheap lens. You could get them in excellent condition for like 125, 150 bucks. And it's a super wide. It's like equivalent to a 20 to 26 millimeter on a full frame camera. So it's definitely wide angle. But you know, these are only 3 lenses that consistently work with this adapter. The others all the other Canon lenses seem to have issues when they get over 55 millimeters. And it could be because it needs a lot of bright light, which would be a combination of the lens, the adapter, and the camera. What can I say? So without further doggy-doo, let's jump right into the samples and check them out. I took this picture like 10 after 7 on June the 10th, and it looks a little soft to me. This picture looks a little bit sharper. The other one was at 10 millimeter. This might have been close to 18 millimeter. And it's not too bad, but it's not too good. Now, this thing has a IS, and the IS seems to be energized, so even at a slow shutter speed, I shouldn't have unintentional camera movement. It's soft, but you know, it was sort of dim. I mean, the Canadian smoke came down from Canada's forest fires, and that's why everything has this a low contrast flat look to it. Well, I like the way this picture came out. Now I went into panorama mode. I started taking a bunch of panoramas. Where the letter is there's a glitch where the camera stitched them together, because the camera does this, it's in the camera and the camera stitching them together. Now if you see where the B is, it doesn't line up precisely, but if you go down you really can't see where else it is. Now here's another example. I like the way Panorama makes this look. It's not fisheye wide angle. See, there's two glitches up at where that roof edge is. But if you go down, it's hard to see, and the more you get to the bottom, the more better it stitches. Now, is that because this lens has some distortion and it couldn't meld it together? I don't know. You can see right above the B, there's a glitch where the roof edge doesn't line up. And if you look over the Grand Cafe in the upper right, you can see there's a little something artifact overhanging also. This is not a panorama, this is just a regular shot. So let's see what the weather vane looks like. It's soft. So it's not horribly out of focus, but it's not really in focus either. And I got to do some more experimenting in bright weather, you know, to see if that helps. Now, if you look here, where the A is, and now it's a B, you can see that these railings are not lining up. So that's a little suspicious to me. But on the top, it's worse, and on the bottom, it's better. Now here, we have some more windows. I think these windows got doubled up or something. So somehow it was having trouble stitching it together. And that's interesting. You could have an arrow going left, right, up, or down, and then you just follow the arrow in that direction. And then if you pan too fast, it says, oh, you pan too fast, couldn't do the panorama. But if you pan too slow, it'll say you pan too slow, couldn't do the panorama. So, and then while you're panning from left to right, you can't make sure, you got to make sure that you don't rotate the camera slightly, because I think that messes it up. So it's very important to pan at the proper speed and to keep the camera perfectly parallel, and don't twist it, you know, clockwise or counterclockwise around the lens barrel. And you can see there's some pretty bad misregister at the top, but on the bottom it looks much better. Not that I'm saying it's a horrible defect, but if you just look at the panorama effect, I like what it does. And I notice that if I use like a 28mm, it stitches everything almost perfectly together. It depends on the lens, how much distortion there is. And there's the distortion of perspective. You can't forget about the distortion of perspective. This one has some distortion, like this barrel distortion, but if you look where the B is, where the arch in the window is, a teeny weeny, a little bit of misregistration. That one it came out really good. And if you look at this A, now the B, you tell that's soft. Like, what was happening here? How come it didn't hit the focus? Was it I don't think the focus changes while you're doing the panorama. I think it locks the first one. Say I'm panning from left to right, it makes the focus, if it's at infinity, for a 10 or 8. Oh, look at this car. There's some distortion. The car was moving, and then as I was panning across, it was in two different spots, but it still smushed together somehow. Now, I went there early on a Sunday, and of course there's no traffic, so what I have to do is I have to go back there where there's a lot of traffic and people and see how many ghost artifacts I could get. If you look where the dish is, there's a little artifact to the right of it. This one came out good, except for where the A is. And if you look, now it's a B, there's a half a car, because the car had moved from, as I was panning, it was gone. So somehow, when it was stitching them together, it only got half a car. This is not a panorama. Now I focus on Bella Oxmith's head. That's Bella Oxmith and his dog Peaches. So I focused on his head. I had like the brackets turn green on his head. But you can tell he's slightly blurry, but the background wall is nice and sharp. So what I should have done, I should have focused on the suit, and maybe I would have got a better focus. I don't know. It's like one of these things you got to play with. There's a little misregistration up on the roof. Just a little a sawtooth step. That was the sun. That's the sun there. So I was panning across from left to right, and I got the sun. And now this B is the close-up. And you can see there's a little bit of sawtooth along the edge, or raster lines, or whatever you want to call them. Now here's the same. I moved a little bit, and I panned across from a different perspective, and that's the same building we saw before where the A is. And you see there's really bad raster sawtooth there, misregistration. Now this one, I didn't do any zoom up on it because it came out really good. I mean, there's nothing in this one that was horrible. I could point out, oh, look what it did. This city is a tight city, although the boulevards are wide, but the buildings are low, and they're knocking down all these old buildings and putting up new buildings. So this is the center. It looks pretty good, although it's a little bit soft. Now this is the left-hand side, and you can see the traffic control light, the support arm misregistered there. Oh, Chef Freddy's table. I bet you he's so glad that this building is finished. They did it in like a year or something like that, but still, he had to suffer with all this construction right next to him. I wonder if the town gave him a break on his taxes, or they made him keep paying outrageous taxes. Now this building on the right is slated for demolition. I think something's going to go up there. It used to be had businesses, and I think I don't know if people live there or something, but now it all looks empty, and I think that they're going to knock this down eventually and put something up there. This is a parking garage. Now watch, we see where the A is. Let's zoom up on that. There's a ghost car, and there's a strobo effect of a car making a left turn. So I definitely have to go there when there's more traffic and see what sort of weird effects I could get. So this is not fisheye wide angle distortion, and there is some distortion of perspective, but the way it stitches together, it makes it look weird. And here's another traffic light where the support arm is misregistered. Now check out these telephone lines, especially on the left side of the screen, right where the A is. Oh wow, that's pretty bad misregistering. But if you look down where the trees are, you really can't see it. Like this line doesn't go all the way down where the misregister is. This is not a panorama, this is just a regular shot. This is one of my standard, pictures I take to check my lenses. Now this one came out pretty sharp. This is somewhere between 10 and 18. It wasn't at 18, it wasn't at 10, somewhere in between. And it was stopped down more because the sun finally came out from the haze, and I was able to use a smaller aperture. And distortion is strictly from perspective. Now here's a 1-to-1 center crop. I was across the street, and this looks pretty good. Actually, it looks really good. There's church. A lot of churches have this, multicolor rainbow. I forget what that's for, but it's for something that was appropriated, I believe. Here's some slick, fancy cars on the street. Now, this is 21 South. We saw the first one when it was like dark and hazy, and now we see these shadows. But I enhanced these pictures to bring out the shadows. And I also sharpened this one.